was the last weekend of autumn when three friends, Luke, Emma, and Jonah, decided to take a trip into the forest. It had been a long time since they had done something spontaneous, and the idea of camping out in the woods seemed like the perfect escape from their monotonous lives. They had heard stories about the forest, but nothing that had ever seemed particularly frightening. The sun was beginning to set as they hiked deeper into the woods. The air was cool, and a strange silence hung in the trees. The leaves rustled, but there was no animal sound, no birds, no insects, nothing. Emma shivered as she pulled her jacket tighter around her. "Did you hear that?" she asked, glancing around nervously. Jonah, the skeptic of the group, chuckled. "It's just the wind. This place has a weird vibe, but it's probably nothing." Luke, more serious than the others, didn't laugh. He paused for a moment, frowning. "I don't know. It feels different here, like we're being watched." They set up their camp near a small clearing, with only a few weak beams of sunlight breaking through the thick canopy above. The fire crackled in front of them as they huddled around it, roasting marshmallows and chatting, trying to ignore the discomfort creeping into their bones. As night fell, an unnatural chill swept through the forest. The fire's light seemed to flicker, as if struggling against an unseen force. The three friends sat in silence, the shadows of the trees stretching long across the ground. "Let's go for a walk," Jonah suggested, eager to break the tension. It's not every day we get to explore a place like this. Against their better judgment, they decided to venture further into the woods. The path grew narrower and the trees denser. The moon was nearly full, casting eerie shadows on the ground, but the forest was so thick that it was difficult to see much beyond a few feet ahead. After walking for what felt like hours, they came upon an old, crumbling cabin, hidden between the trees. The structure was falling apart, its wood rotting and darkened by age, but something about it felt wrong. It stood as if it had been waiting for them. "Let's go inside," Jonah said, his curiosity overcoming any lingering doubt. Luke hesitated, his instincts screaming at him to turn back. "This place feels like it's been abandoned for decades. I don't think we should." But Emma, ever the brave one, urged them forward. What's the worst that could happen? Inside, the cabin was thick with dust, the air stale and heavy. The floor creaked under their feet as they explored. The only light came from their flashlights, casting long beams that darted across old furniture and broken windows. The atmosphere was oppressive. There was a sense of something lingering just beyond the edge of their perception, something they couldn't see, but could definitely feel. Jonah moved deeper into the cabin, pushing open a door that led to what seemed like a small cellar. "Hey, there's a basement here," he called to the others. "I'll check it out." "Jonah, wait," Emma shouted, but he was already descending the creaky stairs. There was a long moment of silence, and then a loud metallic crash echoed from below. "Jonah," Luke called, his voice shaky. No answer. Worry gnawed at them, but they couldn't bring themselves to leave him. The air seemed to grow heavier, and the strange sensation of being watched became overwhelming. They rushed down the stairs after Jonah, the narrow passageways constricting around them. At the bottom, the scene they encountered made their blood run cold. Jonah was standing in the center of the room, his flashlight pointing directly at a faded symbol etched into the stone floor. It was a circle, drawn in what looked like dried blood. "What are you doing?" Emma whispered, but Jonah didn't respond. Then he slowly turned to face them. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and his expression was vacant, as though he was no longer fully there. "Jonah?" Luke stepped forward, reaching out to him. Suddenly, Jonah's mouth opened wide in a grotesque scream. A scream that didn't come from him at all, but from something far older and far darker. It was a sound that seemed to echo through the walls of the cabin, shaking the floor beneath them. Without warning, Jonah collapsed to the ground, his body twitching violently. The air seemed to press in on them, thick with an overwhelming pressure. Luke and Emma backed away, but it was too late. From the darkness of the cellar, figures began to materialize, shadows with glowing eyes, standing tall and silent. In a panic, they ran back toward the stairs, but the ground beneath their feet suddenly gave way. Luke fell, and Emma screamed as she tried to grab his hand, but her fingers slipped. The darkness in the room shifted. The air seemed to thicken like fog, and the figures moved closer, surrounding them. Emma's eyes locked onto one of them, something that resembled a woman, but with twisted limbs and a mouth far too wide. Her face was pale and featureless, yet Emma could feel its cold stare. "Get out! Get out!" Luke screamed, pulling Emma towards the broken stairs, but the stairs collapsed as soon as they tried to climb, sending them back into the room with the shadows. And then, nothing. The next morning, the authorities found the cabin. There were signs of a struggle, blood splattered across the floor, but there were no bodies, no trace of the three friends, except for a single strange symbol carved into the dirt. The forest remained silent, as if it had never witnessed the horrors that had occurred the night before. And as the years passed, others who ventured into those woods heard stories of strange shadows, voices in the dark, and the feeling of being watched.